Etapu, assalamu alaikum, namaste, haru nefer. This is Qesankh Peru with another exciting video for you. And in this video, we're going to talk about how I dealt with trauma and became victorious. However, before I do that, I want you to hit the like button on this video. If this is your first time to my channel, welcome. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications on when I go live and when I upload recorded videos. If you're interested in knowing more about my spiritual teachings, you could read one of my ebooks. You can scroll down the links below, click on the link, and download the ebook today. It's free and start reading it. If you want to take that journey to the next level, you can become a Patreon supporter for as little as $1, $5, or $20 per month. It's up to you. You can cancel at any time. And you'll get exclusive access to instructional videos on the esoteric, videos that will teach you how to meditate, how to overcome trauma, how to put together a magical amulet, how to invoke a spirit for your protection, how to do a money ritual, how to contact the ancestors, how to do divination, oracles. And if you are a Osir level supporter, you'll get your oracle readings and your mantras for free. So become a Patreon supporter today. Last but not least, share this video with family and friends so that we may get this revolution started. Haru Nefer, may Buddha bless you. I want to talk a little bit about trauma. I just finished a meditation session, and I thought it'd be a good idea to really dive deeper into this whole idea of trauma and how we deal with it. You see, we live in this Western world where their end goal is to indoctrinate the planet into Satanism, to create a one world government, to create the mass population as slaves. And in doing so, they don't want, especially with minority groups, you to be balanced, ma'at, healthy, mentally stable. They don't want that. You see, when a people go through a traumatic event, such as the Holocaust, such as slavery, such as what happened when we bombed the Japanese, you need therapy. You need some type of post-support. And to leave a people on their own without providing them support is one of the worst things a society can do. And when it comes to African Americans, it is done on purpose. See, when we cry for reparations, it is not just in the form of monetary compensation, but it's in the form of support dealing with the trauma of slavery, the trauma of Jim Crow, the terrorizing of us by the Ku Klux Klan and by this entire system, which continuously, covertly acts to our detriment. You see, the Western society and mainstream media tries to pretend it is not racist, tries to pretend that there are no covert operations going on against African Americans and other minorities in this country, but they lie. When in fact, they are continually poking at an open wound and acting as if the problem is us, and asking for support, asking for reparations, asking for adequate medical care. How is it that you have a group that has gone through something as traumatic as slavery and who have built this country to now deprive them of adequate medical assistance? And what makes matters worse is that now we have to hold those who are culpable for this. What makes matters worse is that you have people within that community, African-American community, Latino community, who are working on behalf of the government and trying to lay the blame on the masses of people crying for help, trying to make you feel bad for claiming to be a victim. There's nothing wrong with that. And this is done specifically in the African American community to normalize dysfunctionalism. I'm telling you, it's dysfunctional to think that things like WAP, being a thug, wearing your jeans hanging down, is okay. It is dysfunctional to call you a boss bitch or queen or king, because you have no kingdom or queendom in which to rule. But when you're dealing with individuals who suffer from low self-esteem imposed upon them by slavery and society, which continually pumps white people's ego up at the detriment of Black people, and then when Black people try to compensate for this, they deal with different types of coping mechanisms. You see, when Black people smoke weed, rely upon rap music, call themselves thugs, boss bitches, queens, kings. These are coping mechanisms to deal with a oppressive system. And they cannot be 100% blamed for this. But we do blame those individuals for calling it a culture, trying to normalize this dysfunctionalism. When there needs to be a call for ma'at to get back into balance, get back into righteousness. Within the Black community, it is celebrated. Criminal behavior is celebrated. Going to jail is celebrated over going to college and getting a degree. Keeping it real is celebrated. Being from the streets is celebrated. These are forms of dysfunction and mental illness. And now when we find that seeking therapy can be cost prohibitive because it's not covered in many plans, we turn to the pimp pastor ministers and the wise woman on the block for therapy and support. And these individuals are not adequate and not really in a position to help us. So you must understand that there are other coping mechanisms too that we use, such as we'll jump on board non-traditional religions, Nation of Islam, 5%ers, and then call ourselves woke or educated, become a hotepper, and then exclude ourselves from the masses of African Americans, thinking that we have more knowledge, thinking that we are privileged, that we are a part of the select few, as the Israelites would say. But these, again, are coping mechanisms. There are methods and means to deal with the mental illness that we suffer from, to deal with the normalization of dysfunctionalism within our communities, put upon us by the American system, by the Western society, which refuses to grant us help, of course, because they don't want us to be mentally balanced and sane. They don't want the masses of the white population to be mentally balanced. They want to normalize dysfunctionalism because it really advances their plan to indoctrinating the planet into hedonism and Satanism. And you must understand that, which is why we have to cry out for ma'at, for balance. Because we have grown up in abject poverty, many of us have suppressed the suffering that we have gone through. And we don't realize that it's hiding in the back of our subconscious mind, waiting to prop up when it's triggered. And it is often triggered. But we're not aware of it. And commercial TV normalizes our existence by, you'll see us in the home with the picket fence, the dog, the wife, buy fabric softener. And you see the white couple next door holding up the fabric softener as well, to equate us with them as if we make just as much money as them and we live in the same neighborhoods. This is not true. Things are not equal. And we must come to a realization of the grand scheme of things, the grand plan. You have been robbed of reparations because they don't want you to get adequate medical assistance. They don't want you to be able to see a therapist every week. They don't want the couples therapy. They don't want really balanced relationships. So, Clifton, let me address that, what you just said. What are the gremlins in the back of you about? I'm so glad you brought that up, because I put that there and no one has guessed as to why I did that. People think, oh, he just likes the movie. No, there's an important symbolic meaning behind why I put that there. And I'm glad you addressed that. Because gremlins are herbivores. They're the things that disrupt your life. They're the things that bring you down and destroy you. But that's a subject for another video, but kudos to you for addressing that. So let us go back to this idea of trauma. Now, there's many different types of trauma, or what we have gone through. There's the trauma of being in an abusive relationship. There's a trauma of being abused as a child. There is the trauma of racism, which is evergreen. But yet there's nothing in our communities adequate enough to address that. Oh, well, there's religion. You can turn to Christianity and give your life over to Jesus. You can turn to the Nation of Islam and give your life over to Muhammad. And then there's Buddhism. But again, these are coping mechanisms. You see, Western religions and many of the Arab religions are not equipped to deal with trauma, because they primarily are focused on left brain verbal discourse, meaning you're told to speak truth, accept something, and then everything will change. See, you got to where you're at because you have been traumatized. Your system has been shocked, and your subconscious mind was open to impression, and that impression was a traumatic event, which now is rooted in your core being as a negative frequency, as a gremlin. You see? And when the trigger comes, the gremlin comes out, or the herbivore comes out. You see, how you got to where you are now is because the trauma created what in Scientology we call an engram, what in neuro-linguistic program we call a pattern, and in what the Kemetic language we call a conditioning, or the Kemetic spiritual culture. And that conditioning is now deeply rooted on you, or in you. How did the gremlins come into being? Do you know? We understand that they started out as a cute, cuddly looking thing. But what created Stripe and all of the grotesque and ugly gremlins? The Mogwai had to be doused with water. In the Kemetic culture and African culture and many Asian cultures of antiquity, water is seen as the subconscious mind. Meaning that these gremlins, these engrams, these traumatic events are trapped in the subconsciousness and come out at specific times. We call it the trigger. Now, what the trigger does is it awakens and brings a subconscious thought pattern to the forefront. So, in other words, it creates a state of trance. Again, the symbol of the subconscious mind, or trance, is Auset. Auset deals with water. So I could be normal, okay, but when a trigger happens, then I'm taken into a trance state where I relive the traumatic experience, and I'm taken from one state to another state. And because when you're dealing with the subconscious mind, the subconsciousness doesn't understand the difference between what is being visualized or recalled or what is actually transpiring in the physical world. It doesn't understand the difference. So the mere fact that you're recalling the traumatic event through a state of trance, your physiology, your mental state believes is actually transpiring again. Which is why we're careful that when we do hypnotherapy or hypnosis, that if a person is a rape victim, that we don't have them visualize and relive the rape again, because that will cause even more damage and trauma to their spirit or to their subconscious mind. So you need to understand, when you initially experience the traumatic event, what happens is you move from left brain waking state to right brain subconscious state, opens up, and then that traumatic event makes an impression upon the subconscious mind, and it sticks there. And it can be hiding in the deep recesses of your spirit until something awakens it or triggers it. Gizmo is the state of you, your normal waking state. The water is the subconscious mind. The gremlin stripe, or whatever the other gremlins' names are that come out from the water, are the trauma. But how do we deal with that trauma? How do we kill those gremlins? How do they kill those gremlins in the movie? You see, talk therapy is not the way to resolve the trauma. Ignoring the trauma is not the way to address it. Normalizing the trauma is not the way to address it. This is why when I deal with individuals who have experienced trauma, I give them the Ra mantra. And the Ra mantra nullifies and kills the trauma. So let's break this down and go into the science of this. Thank you, Clifton. Appreciate it. Let's break this down, because I really want to see you healthy and balanced. And this, what I'm laying before you, is also the resolution and our salvation to white supremacy, oppression. There are 4 steps to dealing with the trauma that's going on in your life. Now, when I was dealing with my trauma, it was very paralyzing. I couldn't speak. I couldn't talk. I would pass out. You know, if a person came too close to me, I would start shaking and get nervous. But I thought this was normal. It wasn't until years later I realized that something was wrong and I had to take direct action. And some people never. They learn to cope with it. They learn to adapt to it. And they make excuses for it. So-and-so is just very sensitive. Be careful how you say what you say. Oh, talking to so-and-so is like walking on eggshells. That should not be the case. I have a friend I've known for a long time. And one day I went to speak with him, just saying hi, and he exploded on me. And I said to myself, wow, why would saying hi to someone trigger an explosion like that? And one has to understand that we're not all sane individuals. We give the appearance of that. Do you know many people suffering from depression don't give outward signs? They just seem okay. If you were to meet me in person, I'd be jovial. You know, we'd have a great time. I'd laugh, I'd smile. But I deal with serious depression. And in fact, every time I go see my doctor or my therapist, yes, I have a therapist, one of the first questions they ask me, are you still experiencing depression? Because they know that they have to deal with that. It's very deadly. Um, Clifton, Second is a good energy. It teaches you to be introverted and to close off. Now, if we're talking about Second Tim, then that's a very negative energy. You have to be very careful of that. So also too, for the 36 hexagram, the 36 hexagram is telling you that you have light within you. And you have to be careful because the world around you is ignorant. And you shedding your light or sharing your light could be detrimental because people won't see eye to eye with you. Sometimes people are in such a dysfunctional state. When you speak truth, they cannot recognize it and they cannot own up to it. So the 36 hexagram is telling you to hide your light, hide your wisdom. Okay, so thanks for bringing that up. Now let's get back to what I was saying before in terms of dealing with trauma. You know, because this society is all about traumatization. The news, you turn it on, it's all about fear-based programming. We saw a perfect example of this in 2020, where they tried to get you afraid of Donald Trump. When they tried to get you afraid of Saddam Hussein, the Taliban. It's all about creating an enemy and creating fear in you. The Arab states hate us because we stand for freedom. That's a concocted narrative to create fear within you, to traumatize you. And as I said, I thought nothing of it when I was traumatized, but eventually I figured out it wasn't normal, and then I took action because I said there has to be a better way. I cannot live like this. And many of you have learned to cope with it. The demons within you, the gremlins within you. You've made a pact with them. No, sir, you have to set that line of demarcation. You cannot come into an agreement with the devil. It's either all or nothing. Do you understand? The greatest battle you will fight in your life is the battle of the mind. To rid yourself, to purge yourself of the demons that have been implanted in you through social engineering. You have to be vigilant. You have to be on guard. To not allow your spirit to be impregnated or accept negative ideas and thought patterns, which the cumulative effect is a traumatization of the spirit. But let's get back to what we were talking about before in cases like we were saying, domestic violence, person being raped, physical and verbal abuse as a child. It still carries over until today. How do we deal with these things? Do we join a religion? You know, I saw Vanity, and I really liked Vanity, you know, and when she became a born again Christian, she couldn't stop talking about Jesus, blah, 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 about Jesus, Jesus, that, Jesus, and talking about the wickedness of her past. Well, you see, the mere fact that she was talking about Jesus so much and being born again was a sign of a programming, of a conditioning within her spirit. And she did not even recognize that. Compulsive disorder. She just went from one addiction to another addiction. Yes, she was on drugs, but now even the person interviewing her said, well, you know, you were on drugs and addicted to drugs. Now you're addicted to religion. She says, well, I'm addicted to Jesus. That's a good thing. No, it's not. An addiction to anything is not good. If you meditate too much, you're not dealing with the real world. That could be an addiction. Even though meditation can be very helpful, you have to have balance, back to ma'at. So, but I digress. Let me go into this process here. One of the things that I did that was very helpful, and you can use this as a case study and adapt this, was the fact that when I went through my trauma, my parents did everything they could do to rob my brother and I of self-esteem. So what I had to do was go into a state of trance and imagine the ideal parents who would be supportive and give words of encouragement. So every time I meditated, I would meditate on these fictionalized parents who would give me words of encouragement in trance states, to eventually, if you do it enough, you shift to a different space-time continuum when those parents become more of a reality for you than your other parents. And this works the same with domestic partner or partners in relationships. If you have a partner who's abusive and you've gotten out of that relationship, which you should have, you can visualize in trance state the ideal partner who was giving you words of encouragement, support, and love. And you continually do that until you quantum leap to the point of where the partner is real. Now, what do I mean by that? Real enough to when your subconscious mind is recalling something, it recalls only the positive person, positive couple, positive situation, and never references the negative person, because you have created a persona, a person, or partner, or parents who are more real than the ones that were abusive. That's the ideal situation. The other part to that is step 2, because just doing that does not resolve the trauma. You must deal with the archetype. You see, we all have an archetype within us. We all have an image of ourselves that we reference. If someone says, can you do public speaking, usually a person will do reference an archetype that's very nervous and apprehensive about doing public speaking. But if I visualize in my head myself publicly speaking, and I visualize it often in the state of trance, then it replaces the old archetype of Qesankh, and it references the new, more bolder, assertive archetype. You follow? Part 3 is I work with the Ra mantra, which nullifies the energy that has been put into the trauma. See, the trauma is powerful because you've given it energy. And the energy comes from the first initial experience. And then it's compiled over time to become stronger. So that mantra, that Ra mantra, nullifies it. takes it away, takes the power away. So you're channeling energy to it. You're feeding it. You know the old saying, the young Native Americans asked the shaman, well, the shaman said there are two wolves inside you. And the young Native American said, well, which one is stronger? And the shaman says, whichever one you feed the most. Your trauma becomes stronger by thinking about it, by visualizing it. You have to break that trance state so you don't reinforce the trauma continually. But we do, because the society is constructed to reinforce dysfunctionalism. Last one. This is one of the most important things. Once you've gone through step one, the image of the partner, parents, the ideal partner or parents. Number two, dealing with your self-image, empowering your self-image. Number three, the mantra. Number four is the pleasure aspect. You must see yourself deriving pleasure from the new you, from the new experience. That is important because the brain secrete, well, it is the serotonin spike that you need that will cement the new you to the subconscious mind. Without that serotonin spike, you're going to be revisiting the old archetype and the old partner, and you don't want to do that. So that is the powerful formula. Now, I want you to remember the added bonus, which is the fifth step. Whatever you visualize in trance manifests in this third dimensional reality. So if you are seeing yourself bold, assertive, outgoing, opportunities will start to come your way. Doors will start to open for you. Good people will start to come into your reality. Your world will start to change. You'll shift to a new parallel reality, more conducive to your liking. Do you see the added benefit there? You see, modern psychology doesn't want to get into that esoteric aspect. They stop short and just say, oh yeah, well, you'll just dissipate the energy of the trauma and you will purge your subconscious mind of that traumatic event so you won't experience it anymore. And when the trigger comes up, you won't have an adverse reaction. But they stop at that, but they don't tell you that, oh, and then you will manifest positive things in your life that will align with that new archetype self-image of yourself. Isn't God beautiful? Isn't God beautiful? Not only, see, the Western mindset is segregative. It's linear. It's left brain. It only thinks about one component. It puts things in a sandbox. But the right brain is holistic. It sees that along with a spiritual component is a physical component as well. You fix the spirit and the physical world aligns to that. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that wonderful that our ancestors knew that? There is so much wealth and knowledge that our ancestors have left for us, and we need to take advantage of it. Now, if you're saying and asking me, well, should I also seek therapy, traditional therapy? My answer to that would be, of course, yes, you should, because you need to combine the non-traditional with the traditional. You need to combine the Western medicine with the so-called Eastern way or philosophy. We need a combination of traditional medicine and holistic medicine. We should never be thinking of one to the exclusion of the other. That's the Western mode of thinking. This is why Our ancestors always thought holistically, never segregatively, excuse me. Segregative thinking has put the world into darkness and despair. This is why you have the masses of Black people going insane. We're not meant to think in a segregative left brain way solely. We're meant to think holistically. And this society is not constructed to think holistically in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't think that way. So please understand that. So I have given you the alchemy formula to deal with your trauma now. So you need to start work on this. Meditate as much as possible. As I always say, I keep a journal of all the things I feel that have caused me problems in my life. My demons, my vices, whatever you want to call them. And I actively meditate on each one, checking them off and saying, okay, I got that under control. I've dealt with that and moving on to the next one. And this is something we're not taught to do in this society. Why? They don't want us sane. They want us insane. Everyone should be meditating. Everyone should be meditating. Meditation brings about good health physically and stable mind mentally. The sick, perverted people who sit on the pulpit of most religions tell you don't meditate because it's a gateway to the devil. They're sick in their heads. Every doctor in Western medicine has said that meditation makes you calm, raises your IQ, lowers your blood pressure, makes you more balanced. But yet these ignorant fools in Western religion try to keep you away from meditation because they're blind and dumb, which is not why you should not be listening to them in the first place. The Bible is a book of metaphors. It is a secret occult book, but these idiots don't know how to read it because they take everything literally. They don't know how to use their right brains to read the analogies, the symbolisms. The Bible is based on astrotheology and understanding of the stars. The biblical characters from Jesus and Mary are all stars. But they know not what they do. They are the blind leading the blind off a cliff. So I want you to start on your journey, start on your work. To rid yourself of the trauma of the past and embrace the new you. Confident, loving, more attractive. Not more attractive to me, but hey, they broke the mold, but whatever. I digress. But I sincerely mean this. There is so much love, God's love, the planet's love, Ma'at's love, waiting for you. All you need to do is start working on self. Know thyself. And the doors and opportunities will start to open for you. I am a living testament of that. 20 years ago, I could never get on YouTube and speak publicly. I could never walk down a street without passing out. When I spoke, I whispered for fear of people hearing me. And I have made incredible strides using this system. And I am a work in progress. I am going to rock the future and kick ass. You've seen nothing yet. You think this is the best I can be? No. There's a lot more to me waiting because I'm still working on things. This is Qesankh Ma Keperu, wishing you well. I am the son of Ma'at and Tahuti. Ma'at is a beautiful goddess Heteru. Until my next video, I'm in Ra.